What would you do if you woke up as the most powerful being ever to walk the earth? And the first thing you saw was chains. Not just any chains. Divine weapons, driven straight through your flesh, pinning you to the bottom of a magma lake at the center of the world. That was the situation Cohen found himself in, and it was, to put it mildly, not ideal. One moment he was a game designer, an ordinary man waiting at a traffic light, watching headlights from a truck filling his windshield. His whole life flashed past in an instant. School, graduation, years of designing games nobody outside the industry ever heard of. Nothing special, nothing heroic. And then everything went dark. He did not die. Not exactly. He woke up burning, his body impossibly heavy. His mind flooded with memories that were not his own, but felt like they had always been there. Memories of a world called the Orid Continent, ancient and vast, full of magic and gods and races beyond counting. Memories of a dragon lord named Kuwin, who once reached afar, touched the power of outer gods, and became something the world had no name for. A world-destroying demon dragon. Kuwin had conquered the demon realm, corrupted the land, waged war against everything alive. The gods themselves had stepped in, forging 8 divine weapons, giving them to 8 chosen heroes. 100 years of war followed, 100 years before those heroes finally brought him down. They did not kill him. They chained him, drove the divine weapons through his bones, and sealed him in a place called the Rift Abyss, forgotten by the world above. And now Cohen was that dragon. Great news. He was one of the most powerful beings ever to exist. Terrible news. He could not move a single finger. He pushed anyway, because that was the only thing left to do. Slowly, painfully, he heard cracking sounds. Rocks broke, chains rattled against bone. Eventually, he could move his head, his legs, his tail. His wings were still pinned flat. But progress was progress. He scraped his eyes open against the cave walls and saw the world around him glowing red. He was sitting in a pool of magma. Chains covered in glowing runes wrapped every inch of his body, some of them piercing clean through flesh and into the bone beneath. He tried everything. He bit the chains. He blasted them with dragon breath. He clawed until his claws cracked. Nothing worked. Divine weapons were built to hold something exactly like him, and they were doing their job. But then he remembered something important. The original dragon had 13 generals, fanatical followers, each carrying a magical artifact tied directly to their master. The seals had weakened over centuries. His body was still trapped, but the mechanisms blocking his magic were crumbling. He cast the summoning spell. It worked. His consciousness reached out through the void, connecting to one of those artifacts, and found it sitting on a display shelf in a museum in a kingdom called Blue Crystal. A tall blonde woman in expensive armor had just picked it up as a birthday gift for her father. The moment she touched it, her mind got pulled into a mental space, floating in a void of stars, face to face with an enormous dragon head. Cohen opened his mouth to deliver a grand, villain-appropriate speech. Then he noticed the holy light radiating off her like a lantern and nearly choked. She was a holy knight commander, a knight of the church, not a demon general. It was like setting up a secret criminal meeting and accidentally inviting a cop. His first instinct was to cut the connection immediately, but he was too weakened to restart the spell for days. So he stayed and looked at her properly. She was not panicked. She looked around the starry void with mild curiosity, like she had been mildly inconvenienced. Before Cohen could introduce himself, she crossed her arms and told him to turn himself in. Apparently, there was a well-known scam on the continent. Fraudsters pretended to be ancient powerful beings, dragged rich people into visions, and robbed them. She thought he was a con artist. She told him to drop the act, release her, and warned that the church would track her down and he would regret this. He told her he was not a scammer. She did not care. She pulled out her sword, started praying, and tried to break free. Her body glowed bright for a moment, then faded. It did not work. She tried again, failed again, used an amber crystal pendant, nothing. Cohen just muted her, literally used his power to silence her voice, and started summoning the next artifact holder. She kept yelling, completely unaware she had been muted, charging at invisible walls while he worked around her like she was furniture. The next summon brought a tall, cold-eyed man in leather armor with a massive broadsword on his back. He looked around once, stared at Cohen's dragon head, and said nothing for a long moment. Then he spoke, low and threatening, "Send me back before I get angry." Cohen's eye twitched. He spat a small fireball. It was almost casual, like flicking something off his claw. The man burned to ash in under 10 seconds. No scream, just gritted teeth and then nothing. The fire carried something extra, a corrupting whisper that tore through the mind alongside the body. The pain was real, more real, perhaps, than actually dying. When the swordsman reformed, he stayed very quiet. Still stubborn, still furious, but quiet. The knight, who had watched the whole thing, decided it was obviously staged. A performance to intimidate her. She and the swordsman were clearly in on it together. Cohen did not know what she was thinking, which was the only reason she escaped getting burned next. Third summon, a bald old man in an alchemist robe with a monocle, who took one look around and said he used to run scams like this before he got caught, and did jail time. He offered to teach Cohen better techniques. Cohen did not respond, just tossed him aside. Fourth summon, a tiny girl, pink curly hair, doll-like face, big round eyes. A puffy princess dress covered in flowers, maybe 7 or 8 years old. She looked up at the enormous dragon head above her and squealed with delight. A big dragon. Cohen stared at her for a moment, then sent her over to the others. The knight immediately scooped her up protectively. After that, no more summons worked. The remaining artifacts had no owners or had been destroyed. So he looked at his lineup. A holy knight who thought he was a criminal. A swordsman who wanted to kill him. A bald ex-con, and a small child. He asked anyway, "Who wants to follow me? I can grant any wish you desire." The little girl's hand shot up immediately. The knight pushed it back down and whispered that he was a scammer. "But he is a big dragon," the girl said. "Big dragons are evil. I will take you home soon." Cohen ignored the argument and focused on his real problem. He needed someone powerful enough to collect divine weapons and break his seal. The knight was from the enemy faction. The old man was useless. The swordsman was possible, but difficult. Then the little girl casually mentioned her grandfather was a hero. The room went still. Cohen shoved all 3 adults behind an invisible barrier and leaned his massive dragon eye close to the child. He made his voice as soft as a dragon could manage. "Sweetie, did you just say your grandfather is a hero?" She nodded hard. "My grandpa is the greatest hero ever." "Does he have a divine weapon? Something he always carries?" She nodded again. His heart was pounding. He asked carefully, gently, the way you ask a child something important. "Does your grandpa let you play with it?" Her cheerful face went sad. "Grandpa and Grandma and Mom and Dad do not spend much time with me. Only Uncle Leonard plays with me sometimes." Cohen acted outraged on her behalf. How terrible. How could they leave such an adorable little angel alone? Behind the barrier, the knight was pounding on the invisible wall and screaming. The swordsman had his eyes closed. The old man was studying the mental space like it was a science experiment. Cohen asked what the weapon looked like. "It is a really thick book," she said. "When I draw pictures in it, they come alive. It is super fun." The World Book. One of the 8 divine weapons. And she had played with it yesterday. Twice. Once that morning. It was right by her pillow. Grandpa said he does not need it anymore, so he gave it to me as a toy. Cohen was so stunned he forgot to breathe. A divine weapon, given to a child. As a toy, he pulled himself together. "What is your name, sweetie?" "Amira. Amira Fora." "Nice to meet you, Amira. We are best friends now. My name is Kuwin." Kuwin. The world-ending calamity. He formed a small ghostly hand and she grabbed it with both of her tiny hands and shook it excitedly. "Yay, best friends. As your best friend, could you do me a small favor?" He taught her a complicated ancient spell, and she memorized it perfectly on the first few tries. The girl had a natural gift for magic that was almost unsettling. "When you go back, open the world book to the last page. Read the spell. Can you remember it?" "Amira always keeps her promises," she said seriously. He gave her one final gift, a rune carved directly into her palm, sinking into her skin. It made her immune to all fire, and let her summon a fire spirit to protect her whenever she was in danger, or just to play with. He had a feeling she would use it mostly for that. She held her hand to her chest, beaming. "I love this gift." The mental space began to fade. All for visitors drifted back to reality. The knight snapped awake in the museum, furious. She immediately flagged the bracelet as a scam device, and stormed out to report everything to her church. The swordsman, in a lawless city called Yado, stared at the artifact for one cold moment, then threw it in a trash pile and walked out the door. The old alchemist, in a hut powered by lightning strikes in the middle of a desert, sat at his workbench and kept trying to figure out how the magic worked. And Amira, in a fairy tale room inside a castle called White Rainbow Keep, rolled around on her pink bed, happily saying Cohen's name to herself like she had found something wonderful. Then she remembered her promise. She jumped off the bed, found a thick brown book on the floor with a world tree drawn on its cover in 7 colors, and opened it to the last page. The world book could talk. Words appeared on its blank pages, asking what she was doing. She told it she was just reading and took a breath. and began reciting the spell Cohen had taught her. Nothing dramatic happened. No explosion, no flash of light. But the moment she finished, the last page of the world book began to flutter on its own. It crumbled apart piece by piece, each fragment burning to ash in the air until nothing remained. The girl just stared at the empty space where the page had been, unsure what she had done. Down below the surface, Cohen felt at the instant it happened. Several chains lost their power simultaneously. He snapped them without effort. A portion of his strength came rushing back. He could spread his senses outward now, feel the world in a limited radius around him. He thrashed in the magma with excitement. Unfortunately, a dragon thrashing in magma causes earthquakes on the surface. Adventurers across the region felt the ground shake, and monsters started howling in fear. The guild's leadership took notice. Cohen did not particularly care. He was too busy discovering what had grown above him while he slept. The rift abyss was gone. What had once been a sealed, forgotten place was now called the Eternal Night Forest, a massive adventurer's paradise covered in permanent dark purple clouds. His body's radiation, leaking for ages while he lay unconscious, had filled the underground with warped creatures and monster colonies. Stretching up through 14 layers of cavern, adventurers had built stations everywhere. Monster hunting was a career here. Cohen swept his senses through the nearby area. Twisted plants, deformed creatures, magic-rich mineral crystals, all created by his existence alone. He could not reach the surface yet, but he could work with what was close. He needed a servant. He found a bat-like monster near him, roughly the size of a young dragon. 5 limbs arranged unevenly, a head that looked like Tiskul's half-merged, wings that made it fly crooked, strong enough, but completely mindless. Cohen locked it in place and went to work. He reshaped its flesh and bone, removed the extra limbs, covered exposed muscle with proper skin and scales, sculpted the head into something that actually looked like a dragon. When he was done, a new creature stood in the magma light, purple skin, 2-legged, long-necked with fangs and hawk-sharp eyes. And most importantly, it had intelligence. He projected his dragon head in front of it. The moment the creature saw him, something deep and absolute fired in its bones, an unquestionable recognition of authority. It dropped immediately, bowing flat against the rock. "My first servant," Cohen thought, admiring his work. "Can you understand me?" It nodded. "Good. Your name is Purple Wing. Go up to the surface, explore everything you can, and come back in 3 days." Purple Wing bowed respectfully, spread its new wings and flew straight at the ceiling, then smashed headfirst into solid rock and got its head stuck. Cohen stared in silence. Intelligence, yes. Common sense apparently pending. After Purple Wing struggled free, Cohen floated his dragon head up next to it. "You know your breath attack would be faster than clawing, right?" Purple Wing paused, looked at the tiny hole it had been scratching, and seemed to process this for a long moment. Then it opened its mouth and unleashed a column of purple flame. The rock burned through in under 30 minutes. Purple Wing squeezed into the tunnel and disappeared into the dark. 3 days later it came back, and Cohen dove into its memories immediately. 14 layers of underground cavern, stacked like an upside-down triangle, each level growing larger the higher you went. Monsters filled every floor, warped by his radiation. Stronger near the bottom, but also more deformed and mindless. Layer 8 was where things got interesting. Corrupted pig people with rocks embedded in their skin. Corrupted lizard men. Undead creatures and massive solo monsters so powerful they had carved out personal territories nothing dared challenge. Layer 7 was rougher. Intelligent species. Fast flyers that had chased Purple Wing down and tried to eat it for the concentrated corruption in its body. Purple Wing had escaped only by burning endless purple flame until the pursuers gave up. When Purple Wing finally returned, it was covered in wounds. Someone had beaten it up. Cohen's eyes narrowed. Those creatures dared touch what was his. Time to establish some ground rules. He carved dragon runes into Purple Wing's body, a trap that would rip out an attacker's soul and trap it inside if anyone struck the creature. Then he sent it back with a message for the Lords of Layer 8. The message was simple: the ground you stand on, the power you use to grow strong, all of it belongs to me. Swear absolute loyalty, become my servants, or suffer endless torment. Most of the Layer 8 lords were suspicious, but did not dare attack. A few hotheads refused and lashed out at Purple Wing. They found out immediately what the runes did. When the other lords went to check on those who had attacked, they found their bodies still standing, completely empty. Soulless husks with nothing left inside. Whatever doubts remained vanished. Back at the bottom, Cohen released the 3 captured souls and let them see his dragon head floating above them. They dropped flat and begged for forgiveness before he said a single word. 3 demons. West Viper Fong, a pitworm, Samantha Thornrose, a vampiress, Quake Lavrour, a great horned demon, each one king level in their respective demon clans. He offered them a choice: sign a permanent soul contract, or die here. They signed. With 3 loyal servants secured, he turned to gathering information. His entire era had been erased. The earliest history the demons knew began with the Godfall, a catastrophic war between gods that collapsed civilization. Everything before that gone. His name, his legend, his world-ending reign, all of it swallowed by the ages. Cohen considered this for a moment. Then he decided it was actually good news. Nobody knew he existed. And given what had happened to the original dragon for being too ambitious, staying invisible seemed like the smart play. He had a different plan. Not conquest. Not terror. A peaceful life. Enough strength to protect himself, and nobody coming to look for trouble. The original dragon had gotten crushed by the gods for reaching too far. Cohen, who was also Xiao Miao at his core, was not going to mimic that mistake. He sent the 3 demon servants upstairs with contracts for the layer 8 lords to sign. A 100-year term, not permanent. When the 3 realized everyone else was getting a better deal than their own permanent contracts, they nearly choked with regret. Too late for that. With the underground lords now officially under his thumb, Cohen turned his attention to a larger goal: souls. Souls were the universal currency between gods and demons. As a being with both divine and demonic nature, he needed them too. But he was not going to consume them outright. That was wasteful. The smart play was soul farming, owning someone's soul through a contract, letting it feed him a slow, steady stream of energy over time. Absorbing a soul directly gave the same return as farming it for 3 or 4 months. The long-term math was obvious. What he needed were mortal souls. Lots of them. And conveniently, there was an entire adventure industry operating directly above his head. The plan was forming clearly in his mind, but it needed bait. Something so valuable that mortals would come to him willingly. He was a game designer in his previous life. He understood systems. He understood what made people keep playing. And that was when the idea hit him. On the 3rd underground floor, a young adventurer named Perry was dying. He had only been in the business for a year, all of it to pay for medicine for his sick mother. He had just killed a powerful swamp toad and taken its poison sac, a prize worth enough to buy a life essence potion that could cure any common disease. But a gang called the McQueen Group had been watching. They jumped him, beat him half to death, stole everything, and dumped him in a skeleton soldier cave to die. Perry lay on the cave floor, bleeding out, surrounded by bones that would come alive at nightfall. That was when Cohen reached him. His servants had brought Perry down on his orders. He had told them to find adventurers who were desperate, people with nothing left to lose and a powerful reason to live. "Do you want to live?" he asked, his voice drifting into Perry's fading mind. "Of course I do. Even sell your soul." A pause. Then, firmly, even that. A soul contract appeared in Perry's mind. He signed. Cohen flooded his body with healing energy, then had his servants carry him back to the skeleton cave. So, he would think he had never left. When Perry woke up, his wounds were gone. He felt strong, and on his wrist was a red diamond-shaped mark. He touched it, and a glowing panel appeared in front of his eyes. Name, race, level, combat power skills, inventory. All laid out in front of him like a video game interface. This was Cohen's real innovation. In this world, getting stronger depended entirely on natural talent. But talent was invisible. People trained for years with no way to know if anything was actually working. The panel changed everything. It made stats visible. It quantified growth. It let people watch themselves getting stronger in real time. Any smart person would instantly see the value, and they would come back for more. A skeleton soldier assembled itself behind Perry. He grabbed a weapon and killed it without thinking. A small ball of light flew out of the bones and merged into his body. He checked his panel. His experience had gone up by 2 points. Instead of running, he stayed and kept killing. One skeleton after another. On the 16th kill, his experience bar filled. He hit level 2. His health fully restored and he felt noticeably stronger. Kill monsters, get stronger, watch the numbers go up. Addictive by design. Purple Wing had been watching from above the whole time and brought the memories back to Cohen. The system worked perfectly. Once word spread about what Perry could do, other adventurers would come looking for the same deal. They would seek Cohen out and offer their souls willingly. All he needed now was one more customer to get the word moving. He did not have to wait long. 2 days later, Perry came out of the shadows with his revenge on his mind and his revenge on his blade. He had stayed underground nonstop, grinding until he hit level 3. Then he went hunting. Not monsters, but the McQueen gang who had left him for dead. He found them exiting a giant armored lizard nest, exhausted and beaten up from a fight Perry himself had caused by sneaking in, and waking up every lizard inside. McQueen did not even recognize him at first. When he did, he could not believe the kid was still alive. Perry did not bother talking. He blurred forward, and the gang's big iron fist fighter barely had time to widen his eyes before a dagger punched through his chest. Perry tore through the rest before anyone could react. McQueen ended up on the ground with all four limbs cut, crying and begging. Perry grabbed him by the hair and dragged him toward the lizard nest. You said it yourself. This is just how adventurers are. He threw them all in, one by one. Exactly the death they had intended for him. Afterward, Perry noticed that killing adventurers gave zero experience. He understood immediately. Cohen had designed it that way deliberately. He was about to head for the surface when a voice behind him asked, in a beautiful and completely calm tone, what that glowing thing was. Cold sweat covered his back instantly. She had been following him, a highly skilled assassin who had watched everything. The glowing panel. The power gained from killing monsters, all of it. She cornered him, twirling an expensive dagger, and demanded answers. Perry had no choice. She was way above his level. He told her everything. The woman listened carefully, seemed to have some way of detecting lies, and did not question a single word. She asked Perry to open his panel. While examining it from behind him, she suddenly slashed his hand with a poison blade. He went completely rigid, full body paralysis. She pointed at his panel. A new line had appeared under his name, status, paralysis, 5 hours. Even Perry had not known the panel could show that. Interesting, she muttered, eyes practically glowing. She cured his paralysis, demanded to know where to find Cohen. And when he genuinely could not answer, she called him useless and vanished. Cohen was thrilled. His second customer had come looking for him on her own, and she already understood the price. He sent Purple Wing after her. It brought her down to the bottom level unconscious, though not without earning a few scratches, which impressed Cohen considerably. She pretended to still be knocked out when she arrived. He noticed her fingers twitch. No need to fake it, he said. I know you are awake. She instantly melted into the shadows and reappeared across the space, with crescent-shaped daggers in both hands. She looked around and saw only a pair of enormous eyes floating in a starry void. Alongside Purple Wing, Cohen had set up a disguise. His real form carried too much presence for a mortal to safely face this close. Aren't you the one who was looking for me? She asked cautiously. He walked her through the pitch, the panel, real-time feedback from killing monsters, measurable growth, visible progress. She listened, asked whether she could refuse, and seemed genuinely surprised when he said yes. Of course. She left without signing. Cohen let her go without complaint. Building trust mattered more than forcing one deal. She came back 2 days later. Her name was Aura Lancaster. Noble family. She sat down at the table he conjured, poured herself tea, made a face at the bitterness, and got straight to business. She pushed back on pricing. A full soul sale for the panel felt unfair for someone already powerful. She argued. What about a rental instead? Cohen agreed. 1 month, renewable if the contract expired and she did not renew. She would lose half the power she had built through the panel. Aura looked surprised he agreed so quickly. Then she signed. Her panel opened. Level 45. Combat Power 380. Elite Rating. Shadow Walk at 51. Danger Sense at 20. Dual Blade Mastery at 41. She was thrilled, immediately spotting her strengths and weaknesses like she had been given a mirror she had never seen before. For Cohen, the feedback was excellent. Her soul quality was outstanding. One of her was worth 10 puris in energy return. The word spread fast, exactly as he planned. The Blackstone Adventure team heard about it next. A group that had been kicked out of every other team for underperforming, drowning in debt and nearly starving. When they heard about a mysterious underground entity offering power in exchange for a soul rental, they did not hesitate. They were already dying. What was a soul rental compared to that? Late one night, they crept down to the 5th floor, and their leader spoke the words, Great Pathfinder. A figure appeared from the dark, floating smoothly with a lantern in one hand and a top hat over its lantern-shaped head. Cohen's receptionist, an undead demon lord he had given a complete makeover. Dozens of watching eyes saw the whole thing from the shadows. Cohen's business was officially open. The Blackstone team signed 3-month contracts and immediately noticed something extra. A team feature under their names. Voice and telepathy between teammates. Shared inventory viewing. Basic stats visible to each other. Real-time communication in the middle of a fight. Cohen had designed this specifically for groups. Elite organizations like hero parties or demon-slaying armies could afford custom communication spells from top wizards, for broke adventurers could not. Getting this for just a soul rental was an extraordinary deal. Word exploded through the upper floors of the Eternal Night Forest. Within days, the Blackstone team had transformed. Once a joke team that could not earn a basic rank, they were now hunting monsters that gave experienced teams trouble. Perry was even more dramatic. In just over a month, he had gone from unranked nobody to blazing star rank, skipping 3 entire tiers. Most adventurers spent their whole lives stuck between those lower levels. The information spread until it reached the desk of Guild President Uzarin, a sharp-eyed, gray-haired, powerfully built man who read every word and immediately notified the nearest Holy Light Church. An investigation was coming. Cohen could not let that go wrong. While all of that was developing above him, he had also been handling a very different situation, the goblins. The vampiress Samantha had found them, a tribe called the Guk tribe on the Jur Plains. 1-100-30-1,000 goblins strong, controlling 12 mine veins and their own underground fortress city. They had just fought off a coalition army from the Wind Lion Kingdom and survived, barely. Their casualties were heavy, and their great chieftain knew they needed something more. Their shaman was already planning to contact a mysterious being for help, something shamans from all kinds of monster races apparently love doing, often fatally. Cohen had Samantha plant a special rune near the shaman's ritual circle. When the old goblin began his ceremony, trying to summon a being called the High Devourer, the rune fired. Orange sparks erupted through the summoning smoke. A massive dragon head Cohen's lunged forward and swallowed the contact hole. The old shaman dropped to his knees and addressed the dragon head with perfect reverence. Great and mysterious sovereign, the humble goblins seek power to fight the humans. We offer our souls as payment. Cohen did not want goblin souls, but he did have something else in mind. He hit the shaman with raw energy directly. The old goblin's body lifted off the ground as his shriveled muscles swelled and filled out. His gray-green skin turned vivid red. Bone spurs erupted across his body. When Cohen dropped him, the shaman crashed to the floor, gasping, and looked down at his new body with pure wild joy. The hook was set. The entire Guk tribe assembled on the plains. Over 10,000 goblins crowded together around a massive iron cauldron, filled with glowing orange potion. The chieftain drank first. He collapsed in agony, and when he rose, he was no longer hunched. Dragon-shaped bone spurs erupted from his back. He radiated power he had never possessed before. One by one, the other leaders drank and transformed, each becoming what they started calling a red goblin, bigger, stronger, a new version of themselves. But 5 refused. The 4 war generals and the Iron Law judge stayed back. Their leader, General Fuzz, walked up, took the bowl, stared at it, and poured it back into the cauldron. I think goblins should look like goblins, he said. I am strong enough already. The shaman warned them they would regret it. He could not force them. The Guk tribe split into 2 factions, red goblins and green goblins. Cohen actually approved of this. Internal division would make them easier to manage long term. The prediction proved correct almost immediately. When the Wind Lion Kingdom sent an even larger coalition army, the red goblins tore through the front lines like fire through dry grass. The battle was short and brutal. The green goblins got shoved aside, scavenged scraps in the rear, and watched the cheering come entirely from the red faction. The 4 war generals stood in a corner looking sick. They used to lead these charges. Now they were background decoration. Within days they went crawling to the shaman, begging for the transformation potion. The shaman, drunk on his new power and looking down at green goblins like primitive savages, refused. He told them no second chances. Then he announced that he and the chieftain had decided green goblins would be enslaved. He started forming a dark energy ball to brand them. Cohen slammed a message directly into the old fool's brain. Who told you to make decisions on your own? Every single goblin becomes red. Not one left out. The shaman screamed. Blood poured from his nose, ears, and eyes. He dropped to his knees and slammed his forehead into the stone floor over and over, until he had carved a crater, and his face was a bloody mess. When he stood up, the arrogance was completely gone. He turned to the green leaders with a terrified expression and said quietly that the Great One's will required all goblins to transform. The green leaders stared for a moment, then broke into wild celebration. They had gone from being told they would be enslaved to getting exactly what they wanted. It was the fastest reversal any of them had ever witnessed. Meanwhile, Cohen had been quietly rewarding Samantha for her excellent work. He formed a dark red orb of energy and sent it into her body. She froze, then her eyes went wide. It was divine blood essence, a legendary substance that could purify a vampire's bloodline and push them toward the vampire ancestor bloodline, something she had long given up ever receiving. She shook with gratitude. A master who rewards loyalty gets better work than one who only punishes. Cohen intended to be smarter than every demon king that came before him. Back underground, the church investigation team arrived before he could prepare fully. 7 white-robed investigators led by a man named Bicken walked into his meeting space and found floating eyes in a starry void, a table, chairs, and a pot of tea. Cohen greeted them warmly. "Welcome, new guest. It has been so long since I have seen children of the light. I have missed it." His dragon body was screaming with instinctive rage and disgust at the holy energy radiating off them. His actual mind felt nothing. Being a transmigrator had its perks. Bicken asked what he was. Cohen told them he was an earth spirit, a consciousness born from a special region of land. When Bicken had never heard of such a thing, Cohen acted surprised and suggested they check their old records. They would probably find something. This bought credibility while making verification nearly impossible on the spot. He explained that earth spirits were born under rare conditions, magically rich soil, battlefields soaked in resentment. When Bicken asked why the eternal night forest corruption ran so deep, that even heroes could not safely explore its depths, Cohen blamed it on the remains of an ancient god buried here. Every investigator tensed immediately. "Relax," Cohen said gently. "Ancient gods are not inherently evil. Gods are embodiments of order. What is frightening is only their authority. Under rational control, those powers are simply rules." Bicken asked directly whether Cohen had used manipulation, brainwashing, or deception to recruit adventurers. "Absolutely not," Cohen said. "Every transaction is fair and voluntary." He provided sample contracts on request, 1 per investigator, and told them to keep the extras as souvenirs, privately thinking that if any Holy Light follower ever wanted to sign up, having a contract already in hand would save time. The investigators then did what he had expected. They stayed, and kept staying. Their real gambit was exposure. Sit in the presence of an evil entity long enough, and it would eventually snap from the holy light energy radiating off them. Cohen drank tea and made small talk until they ran out of topics entirely. When Bicken finally stood to leave, Cohen held nothing but genuine respect for them. They had walked into an unknown creature's lair, but their lives on a bluff, and held their nerve the whole time. Once they were gone, Cohen exhaled. That hurdle was cleared. As long as the investigation came back clean, his adventurer business was safe for a long time. That same week, the Holy Light's investigation results were delivered to Guild President Uzarin. Cooperation was recommended. No danger detected. Cohen's underground city officially had institutional backing, but something else was happening on the surface that he would only learn about through Rosalind. The Holy Knight commander had been dealing with a serial killer, someone who had terrorized Sky Capital 2 years ago and vanished, now returned. The brain thief could steal people's brains without touching them. Over 20 victims. 0 survivors. The whole city had been mobilized and failed. Rosalind had almost caught him once before and watched him vanish right in front of her eyes. Now he was back, and he had killed an old nun named Anderson, someone who had shown Rosalind kindness when she first joined the church. Worse, he had left a note inside her own home. He had been inside her house. The note promised her friend Alina would be next. She crushed the note and smashed her table with her fist. That was when the bracelet connecting her to Cohen began to glow. Cohen had chosen this moment to ask for supplies, 3 tons of blue magic ore, for his teleportation array. "Get lost," she said. Her first word. He was stunned. She had never exploded like that before. Then he leaned in closer and noticed something strange. Her holy light power had dimmed significantly. "Are you drifting from the holy light?" he asked. She froze, checked herself, discovered it was true, and the realization hit her like a physical blow. She collapsed to her knees. "It is not the light abandoning you," Cohen said, shaking his dragon head. "You are drifting from it." He explained, "The holy light made people strong, brave, positive. But if someone under its protection chose to fall into darkness, the light could not hold them up." He knew more about holy light than most bishops. When you are the enemy, studying your opponent is basic survival. Rosalind understood what was happening, but could not pull herself out of it. "Tell me your problem," Cohen said. "If I solve it, you give me 3 tons of blue magic ore." She refused, said she could manage half a ton at most. He switched tactics. "The light is far away. I am right here, ready to actually help. Do not wait until it is too late and regret it." Her face went white. Whatever she was dealing with, it threatened someone she cared about, and she felt completely powerless to stop it. Finally, in a low voice, "Tell me how you would help." She told him about the brain thief, a killer who could reach through skulls without touching them, leaving no trace, no evidence, no method anyone had been able to identify. Cohen already had his answer. "Have you ever heard of void walking?" She had not. He explained, void walking was a practice where someone contracted a void creature, and learn to move through the void realm. From there, they could reach into reality physically, including through someone's skull. To catch this killer, she needed a way to enter the void herself. He gave her a spell. He carved a temporary rune on her hand. Together, they would let her slip into the void smoothly. No rituals needed, no cost. He also taught her a detection potion recipe that would react to void creatures. Carry it in a clear bottle through the city, and the closer she got to the target, the stronger the reaction would become. She memorized everything in one sitting and wanted to rush out immediately. He had to slow her down. Finding the killer was only step one. She needed to locate them first. After she memorized the full method, the meeting ended. She held up her end of the bargain faster than he expected. 3 tons of blue magic, or higher purity than he had asked for, delivered through the sacrifice ritual he had taught her. Excellent work. He would have to compliment her next time. The brain thief lasted 3 days of lying low before his killing urge burned through his patience. He slipped into the void realm with his contracted void creature coiled around his neck, heading for the church to go after Alina. He turned a corner inside the void, relaxed, completely off guard. A fist smashed into his face, his nose shattered. He flew backward, knocked clean out of the void and back into reality with law enforcement closing in. Rosalind had been waiting for him. He threw smoke bombs, conjured a forest of magical vines and trees to cover his escape, and nearly got away. Then he felt it. Someone re-entering the void behind him. Rosalind appeared directly in his path again. He fired a masterwork crossbow. The bolt punched through her left shoulder. She fell out of the void. He relaxed. Normal void walking had a long cooldown before re-entry. He assumed she would need time. My rune had no cooldown restrictions. Seconds later, footsteps behind him again. He turned and she was charging at him. Shoulders still bleeding, face showing nothing but cold determination and a thin sheen of sweat. Impossible. How can you re-enter so fast? Real fear hit him now. He raised the crossbow point blank. She had been waiting for exactly that. Her legs shot up in a perfect arc and kicked the weapon out of his hands. She closed the gap in a burst of speed. His already broken nose collapsed completely under her axe kick. Teeth flew. He crashed out of the void and tumbled off a rooftop in front of a bakery. He was still conscious. Trembling hand reached inside his coat. Rosalind dropped from above and stomped his wrist. The bone cracked. His void creature launched itself at her throat. She snatched it out of the air by the head and crushed it in her fist. The anguish in his voice was almost pitiful. She broke his other wrist for good measure. The crowd erupted. People were cheering, crying with relief, shouting her name. Women who had been afraid to walk alone were thanking her. Someone yelled that she was incredible. Rosalind stood there bleeding from her shoulder, surrounded by people, and slowly realized this was exactly what she had always wanted. And she would not have managed it without Cohen's help. He was already looking forward to reminding her of that. With the blue magic delivered, the teleportation arrays were complete. Both ends, Cohen's underground and the Goblin Fortress on the Jur Plains. The transfers began. Batch after batch of red goblins materialized on the 13th underground floor. Regular workers first, then managers, then the 12 leaders. Over 100,000 goblins, packed into the underground with Cohen's demon lords towering over the red crowd like mountains, rising from a crimson sea. When he summoned the 12 leaders down to his level, and they saw his true form, the massive seal dragon and the magma, every one of them dropped to their knees instantly. Their bodies moved without their permission, pure instinct in the face of overwhelming power. The old shaman wept with genuine fanaticism. "We will be your most loyal servants." "Listen up," Cohen told them. "There is no more Guk tribe. You are now maintenance workers for the underground city." They did not know what an underground city was. They did not know what maintenance workers meant. They nodded anyway, because they had no other option. Construction began immediately. The underground became loud. Hammering, drilling, machines running. The sound traveling upward through every level. Adventurers on the upper floors started asking about it. Cohen told them he was renovating to make their experience more comfortable. They seemed excited. He was also working on something new for the panel: achievement rewards. Hit certain milestones, earn titles and equipment, or trigger the first one. After weeks of relentless grinding on the 5th floor, she hit level 46. A pop-up appeared. She had killed 20 Seed Head class monsters and earned the title Seed Head Hunter, plus a full equipment set called the Fire Glory set. The title gave 5% attack boost. The set gave 10% fire immunity and 10% speed. The gear appeared directly on her body, completely weightless but physically real to the touch, with a hide function that made it invisible while keeping all bonuses active. She was thrilled. Kill monsters, level up, get cool rewards. Classic game design, and it worked exactly as intended. While all of this was running smoothly, Cohen got distracted in the best possible way, watching the goblins build their alchemy machines. He had picked up the engineering principles just from observation. No man could resist giant robots. He certainly could not. Using materials the goblins set aside, he designed and built a 20-meter-tall humanoid mech based on anime and movies from his previous life. Sleek, modern, beautiful. Nothing like the goblins' brutal designs. He named it Black Shark, loaded it with magic-powered shoulder cannons, retractable wrist blades enchanted to cut any known metal, and defensive arrays so powerful that even an adult dragon could not break through them. When Black Shark moved for the first time, Cohen felt like a child getting his first action figure. He tested it in an open area. Walking, running, jumping, punching, dodging, everything worked. Then he needed a real opponent. He picked the biggest, most aggressive beast on Layer 8, a Kemp beast. A massive rat-like monster covered in launchable backspines and a temper so terrible. Even his demon lords wanted them all dead. Cohen walked Black Shark into its territory. The beast charged without hesitation, pure rage. They collided with a heavy thud. Black Shark grabbed the beast's head as its feet carved to long trenches in the ground. Cohen was piloting a giant mech against a kaiju monster. He was, in his own words, having the time of his life. But that was when something interrupted him. A prayer reached his mind. Rosalind, using the sacrifice ritual to request a meeting, she wanted to say thank you. He put the Kemp beast to sleep with the ground eye root spell, stepped out of Black Shark, and entered the mental space. Rosalind looked completely different. She was glowing. Her holy light returned even stronger than before. She was practically radiating happiness. "This was all thanks to you," she said. "I could not have caught that killer without your help." She introduced herself properly this time, a formal gesture she had never offered before. They were making progress. Then she asked if he could make the void walking spell permanent. He explained the problem. His method worked by tearing open the void barrier using his own power. Repeated use would corrupt her with his energy, unless she wanted to abandon the holy light and become his follower. Her eyes went cold instantly. He had pushed too far. He apologized quickly and taught her instead how to summon and contract a void creature the proper way. No corruption involved. She accepted, asked what he wanted in return. "I will save that favor for later," he said. She told him she hoped he would be at least neutral, if not good, so they could be real friends. "I just want a quiet, peaceful life," he told her. He meant it. Then she brought up a new mystery. Someone had snuck into the brain thief's prison cell and turned him into a vegetable, not dead, but brain dead. The stolen brains had never been found. Someone had been behind the killer, collecting brains for some kind of ritual. "Are you asking me to help solve a crime?" Cohen asked, genuinely amused. "You are experienced and knowledgeable," she said without any embarrassment. "Maybe you can give me ideas." She was not even trying to hide the fact that she respected his abilities now. They had come a very long way from "you are a scammer." He helped with some theories. They parted ways, and life underground kept accelerating. The goblins found something unexpected on the 5th floor. While renovating a chimera's den, they cracked open a deposit of rare red blood ore and accidentally split open a fissure in the rock, leading straight to the demon realm. Most people would panic at that discovery. Cohen felt excitement. A hell rift meant to things, an endless supply of demons to use as labor or monster fodder, and access to rare resources for his goblins to mine. As adventurers kept getting stronger through the panel system, they would kill monsters faster. If the monster population could not keep up, his whole business model would collapse. The rift solved that problem before it even became one. The first visitors from the other side arrived quickly. A dragon serpent demon, male, black hair, red eyes. Upper half human and lower half serpent wrapped in fleshy wings. Squeezed through the rift and immediately announced to the kneeling goblins that they should feel honored to become his food. He laughed, swooped down, grabbed the biggest goblin, and swallowed it whole through his second fang mouth that split open across his chest. Then his eyes went strange. The goblin inside him was not being digested. His teeth could not chew through a red goblin's enhanced body. He looked down at the others. None of them had moved or reacted to their companion being eaten. He started wondering if they were brain dead. Then his sister climbed through the rift and immediately fired an energy beam at him. Before she had fully emerged, "You are hogging food again," she announced. Cohen watched this unfold with genuine interest. Then he gave his order. Quake Lavru rose from the ground directly behind both siblings, his aura hitting them like a wall. Both instantly flattened themselves against the floor, in the most submissive pose physically possible. They had been looking toward the rift, expecting any threat to come from hell. Wrong direction. "You have trespassed on my master's territory," Quake said. "Lowly dragon serpent demons." They spun and prostrated themselves again. Forgive us, great demon lord. Please let us leave. Wrong answer, Quake said. This is my master's territory, not mine. Their minds nearly broke. A being this powerful was just the servant. Cohen spoke through the ground-eye root vibrations in ancient demon language. Tell me about yourselves. The sister explained they were from the Boiling clan of the Dragon Serpent tribe, had been chasing rivals, and stumbled onto the rift by accident. The territory on the other side, a gray bamboo forest of horned demons, with deposits of gray quality raw crystal, one of the best magic conducting materials available. Cohen had a development plan mapped out in his head within seconds. You have one option, he said. Become my servants. The sister threw herself down with fanatical enthusiasm before he had even finished the sentence. 2 new servants, a hellside resource zone, a steady pipeline of demon cannon fodder for his adventurers. The little rift was turning into one of his best discoveries. And there was one more funny moment before things moved forward. The male demon was still clutching his stomach, the red goblin sitting inside him completely unharmed. His sister told him to just spit it out. He refused stubbornly. Anything in my stomach is mine. She reminded him the goblins belonged to their new master now. He finally coughed the goblin up. It crawled out, yawned, stretched, casually wiped off stomach acid, and walked back to its group like nothing had happened. The demon's face went through several emotions very quickly. His sister laughed at him for a long time. The goblins led a scouting team through the rift into hell itself, and came back excited about building an outpost and bringing in their mining machines. Business on every front was moving. But Cohen had not spoken to Amira in a while, and he realized he was actually worried about her. He sent a thread of consciousness along the artifact connection and found her in her room, at White Rainbow Castle, lying face down on her bed, hugging the fire spirit he had given her. She was muttering to herself, Enzeros, I really want to go see Mr. Cohen, but I almost told on him. He will definitely be angry. She rolled over and buried her face in the fire spirit's belly. If I apologize, will he forgive me? Cohen felt something unexpected. He felt mischievous. He materialized a tiny dragon head above her, formed from condensed elements, small enough to float gently in the air of her room. So, he said casually from above her, did you actually tell anyone? No, she answered automatically, then froze. Her head shot up. Her big eyes blinked twice. She looked up and met his grinning dragon face hovering directly above her. She slapped both hands over her own mouth. He had already put up a sound barrier around the room. He had expected the scream. She peeked at the door, looked back at him. Her eyes were sparkling with excitement before going guilty and dropping to her lap. Sounds like our little princess has something to confess, he said. Better come clean. Do you not think? She told him everything. How her Uncle Lunner had nearly gotten her to talk. How the attack happened. How she had kept a secret even under real pressure. At the end, in a tiny voice, please scold me, Mr. Cohen, but I still want to be your friend. He let the silence stretch just long enough to make her nervous. Then, you did the right thing, Amira. Her head shot up, eyes misty with held-back tears, completely confused. Your Uncle Lunner is family. Family is more important than a friend's secret. You made the correct choice, but you are not angry. I broke my promise. Maybe a tiny bit sad, but I understand how hard it was for you. So no, I do not blame you. She lunged forward and hugged his dragon head with both arms. He had made himself small enough for a proper hug this time, formed from real condensed elements so she could actually feel him. She smelled like cotton candy, light, sweet, and clean. After she let go, she gave him a tour of her room, elven carved furniture, a gemstone-studded vanity, glowing fruit lamps, carpets that smelled like fresh grass. Then she accidentally pointed at a piece of fabric on the floor, froze, and stuffed it behind her back with a red face. That is, my underwear. Let us skip that one. Cohen redirected quickly. He nodded toward a book wedged behind her bed. Are you forgetting someone? She gasped, before it, and pulled out the world book, dusty and neglected in the crack between the bed and wall. She had basically forgotten about it entirely since getting the fire spirit. The book opened on its own. Words appeared. Who are you? I am Kuwin, Cohen replied. A long-sleeping elemental lord. The book's response stopped him cold. There are no more elemental lords. Your authority no longer exists. No elemental lords at all. That was alarming on a scale that went well beyond his personal situation. Elemental lords were not just powerful beings. They served as anchors keeping the world's elements stable. Without them, water could riot into endless tsunamis. Fire into uncontrollable spreading destruction, each element going rogue in ways that would be catastrophic for everything alive. The book explained that the gods had reclaimed the elemental lord's authority. and converted it into 12 elemental stakes planted across the continent. Dead objects instead of living dragons. More reliable, perhaps, but it meant dragons had been significantly weakened as a race. When the book asked what his intentions were with Amira, the little girl jumped in to defend him before he could answer. She told the book about the fire spirit saving her uncle under. The book went quiet, then wrote one final line, "I hope you are telling the truth," and closed itself. Amira asked if the book was angry. "Just shy," Cohen told her, intimidated by my magnificence. She believed him completely. He asked her to take him outside. This was his first time seeing the real world through his own eyes, not through Purple Wing's memories or the ground eye roots. He breathed in the air, felt sunlight, sensed the magic flowing through everything. After being trapped underground for so long, even this small thing felt extraordinary. Two elf guards followed. They could not see him under his illusion, but they noticed Amira seemed to be talking to empty air. He caught one of them whispering to a patrol guard. Someone was going to report this. As they walked through the castle grounds, Amira's mood suddenly dropped. She saw damaged walls from the recent attack, and the faces of the dead servants came flooding back. She slowed down, her eyes going dark. She was too young for this kind of grief, and too empathetic to simply move past it. "They are in the divine kingdom now," Cohen told her gently. "They are at peace, enjoying everything beautiful." Is there really a divine kingdom? Of course. He had absolutely no idea, but it seemed to help, and that was what mattered. He redirected carefully. "Amira, you mentioned the Phantom Star Radiance before. Where is it? Take me to see it." She wiped her eyes, got her bearings, and pointed down a corridor. "Follow me." She led him through corridor after corridor, down a staircase, and into an underground room filled with magical instruments glowing night blue. All those devices existed for one purpose, to feed energy into what sat in the center. Even damaged, even cracked, the Phantom Star Radiance was stunning. But compared to the dragon's ancient memories, it looked rough. 3 holes had been punched violently through its surface. Someone had tried to force their way in. "Let us go in together, Mr. Cohen. It is amazing inside. Whatever you imagine becomes real. I already built your amusement park in there." She opened the Phantom Star Radiance. The shell plates lifted. A swirling portal formed, and they stepped through. Inside, an endless green meadow scattered with the child's creations. Castles made of candy, giant stuffed dolls, abstract paintings in bright colors. Amira proudly showed him her recreation of his amusement park. The shapes were rough, memory only capturing the general outlines. He praised her enthusiastically anyway. His real attention was elsewhere. He was scanning for his authority signature deep inside the sphere's structure. It was faint, incredibly faint, but it was there. He broke through the illusion layer and saw the Phantom Star Radiance's true internal structure, incomprehensibly vast and complex. And buried within all that complexity, sealed under multiple layers, was his stolen authority. Good news, the main body was still intact. Bad news, someone had already figured out a workaround to tap into parts of it, without fully extracting it. Whoever designed that method was genuinely brilliant. But the core was still his. That was what mattered. He pulled his senses back, told Amira he needed to leave, and withdrew his consciousness. Back in his sealed prison, he stretched his massive body slightly and immediately regretted it as a chain dug into his side. Productive trip overall. Amira was safe. His authority was still inside the sphere. All good news. Then a red goblin wearing a mining helmet came scrambling down at the bottom level, shrieking, "Master, we broke into a hell rift." Cohen's eyes lit up. He had just found a direct connection to the demon realm and a path to resources that would keep his underground city supplied indefinitely. The panel update was also ready. He pushed it live across every panel simultaneously, while this was still being processed. For new features, cosmetic panel skins buyable with experience, a full 3-dimensional body preview, a friends list for direct communication and item sharing, and the big one, an experience shop. The shop let users spend earned experience to buy equipment, skills, magic spells, knowledge, food, minerals, rare materials, even money, all stocked with things genuinely difficult to find on the open market. Across the entire Eternal Night Forest, every panel user stopped what they were doing at exactly the same moment. An adventurer named Hadi was in the middle of briefing 7 Beastman brothers, who had just arrived at the forest. Refugees from discrimination who had burned through every favor and every coin just to make it this far. She slammed the table and jumped to her feet. Long live the manager. The entire tavern erupted. The Beastmen had no idea what was happening, but every adventurer in the building was overjoyed. Some were already calculating how to buy rare items from the shop with experience. and resell them elsewhere for extraordinary profit. The economic possibilities were enormous, and every transaction cost experience points. Experience that came directly from the souls Cohen was farming. The more they spent, the more they would grind, the longer they would stay, and the more energy their souls would feed him. A perfect cycle, game design at its finest. The update was a massive hit. Within half a day, adventurers had bought out nearly everything in the experience shop, and the beastmen, once they finally understood what the panel was, practically exploded with excitement. Hattie agreed to personally guide all 7 of them down to sign up. Cohen's soul farm had just grown by 7 more, and they would be far from the last. The underground city was taking shape faster than he had expected. But something he had not planned for was unfolding in the Phantom Dragon Forest, and he would only learn about it afterward. A silver dragon named Lunner had returned to White Rainbow Castle, after weeks fighting undead creatures pouring out of a bone field north of the forest. Skeletal dragons had appeared. The Silver Dragon clan was barely holding the line. He came back for 2 reasons: to check on Amira, and to borrow the world book to research the undead surge. Within minutes of sitting down with the little girl, the experienced Silver Dragon sensed something was off. Amira was hiding something. She tried to cover it up, but she was no match for centuries of wisdom. Lunner just waited patiently until she accidentally let Cohen's name slip. Cohen. Who is Cohen? She slapped both hands over her mouth and refused to say another word. But the guilt was tearing her apart. She was caught between her promise and not wanting to hurt the uncle she loved. She was seconds away from telling him everything. Then a maid walked in with a fruit tray, set it down, and silently approached Lunner from behind. He was exhausted from weeks of fighting, completely focused on Amira. He did not notice. The maid pressed her hand against his back. Black lightning exploded across his body. The silver dragon collapsed, convulsing and screaming in agony. Some invisible force locked down all his power. Uncle Lunter, Amira screamed, reaching for him. The maid shoved her aside casually. Our target is not you, little princess, just stay put. Amira hit the ground hard and looked up at the maid in horror. She recognized her, Aunt Chris, one of the castle servants. Someone she trusted. The woman's smile twisted grotesquely. She ripped the skin from her own face, revealing pale, rotting features underneath. Amira's face went white as paper. Even terrified beyond anything she had ever experienced, she still asked in a trembling voice, "Where is the real Aunt Chris?" The fake maid patted her own belly and laughed. "Your dear Aunt Chris. I ate her a long time ago." That was the moment everything Cohen had given the little girl came back to matter. Amira lay on the floor, shaking. The infiltrators hoisted Lunter onto their shoulders and moved toward a teleportation gate, hidden in the basement. More disguised servants appeared from the castle's shadows. The cursed people had been hiding for months, waiting for exactly this opportunity. But Amira raised her right hand. The rune Cohen had carved into her palm glowed once, orange and warm against the cold air. The fire spirit Anseros emerged, a small round creature with soft white eyes, and it read her emotions through their link without needing a single word. Its white eyes turned red, V-shaped. Its body erupted outward, growing massive jaws full of fangs. Thick armored limbs, spines erupting across its back. It became something that had not existed in this world for a very long time. And it went after the kidnappers without hesitation. Buildings melted on contact with its body. The cursed people threw black lightning attacks that slowed it briefly, before the fire spirit roared once and blasted the lightning off like water. Every infiltrator who stepped into its path vaporized instantly, not injured, gone. The leader realized she could not escape while carrying Lunter. With the heat closing in and becoming unbearable, she screamed in fury and hurled the silver dragon away from her. The fire spirit's flames cooled instantly. It caught Lunter gently in its jaws, turned around, and carried him straight back to Amira. Mission complete. It would not go beyond what its master needed, and once Lunter was safe, protecting Amira was the only thing that mattered. The fake maid fled through the teleportation gate with her 2 remaining followers. The gate closed behind her. Months of planning, ruined by a gift Cohen had given a child as a parting present. Amira threw herself onto Lunter, sobbing. He still could not move, but he talked to her softly, comforting her as best he could. The aftermath at White Rainbow Castle was chaotic. Forest elf guards rushed in. Amira's singing teacher, the strongest fighter in the castle, had been ambushed by 3 infiltrators simultaneously. She killed all 3 but passed out from her wounds. Everyone agreed this was a direct provocation against both the Elf Kingdom and the Silver Dragon clan. But then Lunter did something unexpected. When the elves began pressing Amira to explain where the fire spirit had come from, he told them to stop. We should respect the little princess's privacy and not pry into her secrets, he said. Privately, he told Amira he was grateful to her mysterious friend and would not force her to reveal anything. He had his reasons. Whoever gave Amira that fire spirit was clearly powerful and had not harmed her. Pushing too hard might provoke that unknown entity. Smart dragon, Cohen thought when he heard about it later, that if he ever met Leonard properly, he would probably like him. Down in his prison, Cohen stretched his senses through the ground eye network and felt satisfied with the shape of everything. The underground city was rising level by level. Goblin crews hammered and drilled through every floor, guided by demon lords. Sealed tunnels repaired, construction zones expanding upward. The panel system was spreading. Guild President Uzarin had finally come down personally to discuss joint management of the underground city, arriving with Aura as his unofficial messenger. She had made herself entirely at home at Cohen's table by the fourth visit, pouring her own tea with the confidence of someone who lived there. You could at least pretend to have some manners, he had told her. You are a lady after all. She had not cared one bit and kept eating until her belly was round, then agreed to deliver his response to the guild president. Before she left, she asked if she could source blue magic or for him. Her eyes had lit up at the question. She clearly had connections. She said she would think about what she wanted in exchange and get back to him next time. Everything was connected. Everything was building. And Cohen, the world-ending calamity, the ancient demon dragon who had once brought gods themselves to the negotiating table, was sitting in magma making rune-inscribed bricks for a goblin construction crew. He was incredibly busy and doing the most boring job imaginable. Every building material the goblins brought him needed to be individually enchanted, each piece serving a different purpose in the city's framework. Here he was, a being with the power to destroy worlds, doing factory assembly line work. He wanted to cry, but the numbers were moving in the right direction. His power was slowly recovering. The soul farm kept growing, the underground city kept rising, and on every front, the pieces he had placed were doing their work without him. Perry, grinding monsters with terrifying dedication to buy his mother a better life, had become a living advertisement. His rapid rise through the ranks was drawing eyes from every corner of the forest. Aura, displaying her panel openly to anyone nearby, was building credibility without ever acting like a salesman. The Blackstone team was proof of concept made flesh, turning from a joke into a threat that experienced teams talked about at the tavern. With something close to respect, the church investigators had left satisfied. The guild was cooperating, the goblins were building. The demon realm rift was producing resources. Amira was safe. His stolen authority was still inside the Phantom Star Radiance. The World Book was watching him, which meant it had not yet decided he was a problem. Good enough, he thought, better than good. For a being who had once been sealed by 8 divine weapons and 100 years of war, this was remarkable progress. He was not free yet. The remaining chains still held his wings flat and his body deep in the magma. He still needed all 8 divine weapons to fully break the seal. He still needed to reclaim his stolen authority from the Phantom Star Radiance. He still had a mystery. Someone had been tapping into that authority before him, cleverly and without leaving obvious traces, and he had no idea yet who it was. But none of those problems required solving today. Today, the soul farm was growing, the underground city was rising, and one tiny girl in a fairy tale bedroom in the Phantom Dragon Forest was keeping his secret better than anyone had any right to expect from a child her age. He scratched another mark on the cave wall with his horn, not because he needed to track time. His memory was perfect. He just liked having something to show for the waiting. The mark joined a long row of others, each one representing a day spent not conquering, not terrorizing, not repeating the mistakes of the dragon whose memories he had inherited. Peaceful, patient, building something that would last. That was the plan. Stay hidden, stay smart, grow slowly, and let the world come to him instead of the other way around. The original dragon had reached too far and gotten chained in magma for it. Cohen had no intention of making that mistake. He was not that dragon. He was Xiao Miao, a game designer from another world, reborn in the body of a world-ending calamity, who just wanted a quiet life with enough power to keep it that way. That was harder than it sounded, but he was making it work. Above him, 14 layers of underground city were slowly becoming something that had never existed before. A dungeon with a manager, an economy with a soul at its center, a place where desperate people could become strong, and where strength was something you could actually see growing in real time. It was good game design, and Cohen was proud of it. He checked the ground eye network one more time before settling in. Purple Wing was on patrol. The demon lords were managing their floors. The goblin foreman Shattuck was leading a scouting team through the Hell Rift, into the gray bamboo forest. Samantha was somewhere above ground, invisible as a bat, gathering intelligence that would reach him in a day or two. Rosalind was back in Sky Capital, working a new case with methods she had learned from a being she still thought of as probably not evil. Amira was in her room, almost certainly playing with the fire spirit, probably doing something that would scandalize every elf in the castle. Everything was in motion. Everything was under control. And somewhere far above the eternal night forest, under a sky of dark purple clouds, adventurers were checking their panels, buying things from the experience shop, arguing in taverns about which floor had the best monster density. None of them knew the soul they had rented was feeding a sealed dragon who was slowly, carefully, patiently pulling himself back toward the surface. None of them knew that the underground city being built around them was one being's answer to a simple question. What do you do when you have the power to end the world, but absolutely no interest in doing so? You build something instead. That was what Cohen had decided. And so far, everything suggested he had decided correctly. The chains on his body were fewer than when he woke up. The power flowing through his soul farm was growing steadily. 8 divine weapons stood between him and freedom, and he had found a path to one of them through the most unexpected possible source. A little girl with pink curly hair who gave her divine weapon a name and used it as a toy. He could not have planned that if he tried. Amira Fora, Hero's granddaughter, future queen of the forest elves whether she knew it or not, best friend of the world-ending calamity, had no idea how important she already was to everything that came next. And that was fine. She had other things to worry about, like whether Anseros wanted to play Heroes versus Demon King again before dinner. Cohen settled back into the magma and exhaled slowly, a sound like thunder in a sealed cave. The world above him kept moving. His plans kept developing. His power kept growing, fraction by fraction, soul by soul, brick by brick. The High Devourer in its pocket dimension was still furious about losing a client to an unknown competitor who had stolen the contract right out from under it. The brain-collecting mystery behind the serial killer remained unsolved, with someone out there gathering human brains for a ritual that nobody had identified yet. The cursed people who had attacked White Rainbow Castle had fled through a teleportation gate, and their leader's fury at being stopped by a child's toy was the kind of fury that did not fade quickly. The undead surge near the Phantom Dragon Forest was still building. Skeletal dragons already testing the Silver Dragon clan's limits. Problems were accumulating. Threats were circling from multiple directions, and Cohen knew most of them were probably coming his way eventually. Let them come, he thought. He had a mech named Black Shark, a fire spirit that loved demolishing walls, 3 permanent soul-contracted demon lords, 100,000 red goblins who treated construction as a religion, a holy knight commander who would not admit she respected him, but did, and a 7-year-old girl who had already saved a silver dragon by raising her right hand. His network was small but effective. His position was hidden, but growing. He had survived 100 years of war against 8 heroes, 27 elemental dragon lords, and countless champions, only losing because the gods cheated. Whatever was circling above him now, it had not faced anything like him before, because they did not know he existed, and that was his biggest advantage. The chains held for now. The magma glowed around him, steady and patient as the ages. But something had shifted since the day he first opened his eyes in this prison. He had servants. He had allies. He had a soul farm, an underground city, a hell rift, and a promise from a little girl who always kept her promises. One day at a time, one broken chain at a time, one soul contract at a time. The world-ending calamity was coming back. Just not the way anyone, including the gods who sealed him, would ever have predicted. Not with fire and terror, and armies marching from the demon realm. With a panel system, a mech prototype, a goblin construction crew, and the most carefully considered business model anyone below the surface had ever designed. Cohen looked at the row of scratch marks on the cave wall, stretching long and steady in the magma light. He added one more. Then he closed his enormous eyes, let the hum of construction from above vibrate through the rock, and felt something he had not expected to feel at the bottom of a magma lake, in the ruins of a forgotten prison. Satisfaction. He was the world-ending calamity, and for the first time in ages, that felt less like a curse and more like a starting point.